Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the VML Season 13. I'm Filipa, and I'm joined by a special guest this week, Noor. Welcome to the VML here now casting. Noor has been a player of the VML for so many times. You probably have seen her here on the coverage multiple times. So I'm really excited that now we are together casting this event. And it's top 16 week, which is incredible. This is where things really go down. If the players win this week, that means they qualify not only for the regional championships, but also for the VML finals. I would like to, first of all, of course, thank Wizards of the Coast for sponsoring this show. And I want to take a look at Meta Breakdown to share it here with you, Nor, so we can discuss what the meta is looking like for this week. So, what do you think of this meta? 3 mono red Prowess and Temur Otters, 2 Dimir Midrange and Jeskai Convoke. And then we have Azorius, one copy of Azorius Tempo, Boros Token, Dimir Control, Dimir Demons, Gruul Powers, and Mono White Token Control.
So Mono Red Prowess is kind of the name of the game right now. It is the deck that is probably the most popular. It's a very powerful deck that just kills people fast using powerful Valiant synergies of Emberhearth Challenger and Manifold Mouse and using powerful pump spells like Monstrous Rage to push damage. Temur Otters is a bit of an odd choice to see 3 copies of. It is a deck that is very popular with the Sanctum of All Worlds team, and we have 3 members of the team Sanctum of All who registered it this week. So that kind of explains why it's so represented. Dimir Midrange is one of the more common decks in the format. It's just very strong. You get to hit your opponent with cheap flyers like Fairy Mastermind. Then you get to turn those flyers into drawing cards with the new Kaido from Duskmorn and Enduring Curiosity.
Sorry, before we jump into the games, I just wanted to ask you because I was really curious. Foundations is going to be is already legal on Arena, and we are going to see it next week start to be also in the VML. Do you think we're going to see a change in the meta breakdown?
Absolutely. I think some decks gain a lot while other decks don't gain very much. For example, Temur Otters doesn't really get any new cards from Foundations, but Golgari Midrange, a deck which no one really brought this week, now has Llanowar Elves, which is a powerful accelerant that lets you play Haymakers like Glissa or Unholy Annex, or maybe even the Green Overlord on turn 2. Dimir Tempo gets access to Spectral Sailor, which is a nice pickup. Mono red gets Burst Lightning, which might be huge. And there's a lot of other wacky cards that might inspire new decks entirely. Zombify is a cool card for Reanimator decks, and Sire of Seven Deaths is a really neat payoff. There's all sorts of new places for people to brew. I'm very excited to see what comes up next week for Foundation Standard.
I'm very excited as well. I've already been brewing some nice decks. I was talking with you before we went live that Zombify has been inspiring me as well for some decks. So I'm excited to see what our players are going to start crafting. But now let's go into this week and let's see our first match here for the week. So we have, first of all, Cora, and Cora has brought Dimir Control. So this is obviously one deck that has been in standard since forever and will probably still be here after Foundations. What do you think of this particular list?
So this is an interesting control list. I like that it is dedicated to control and not trying to be Dimir mid-range with the Doomsday Excruciator combo like the Handshake Worlds list did. For those who don't know, this deck uses the combo of Doomsday Excruciator, which costs 6 whole black mana for 6/6 with flying. When it enters, if you cast it, each player exiles all but the bottom 6 cards of their library face down, and at the beginning of your upkeep, draw a card. And if you have Jace the Perfected Mind in play, with when you play Doomsday Excruciator, it puts your opponent down to 6 cards in deck. Then you can simply minus X your Jace, where X equals 2 or greater, and mill your opponent out and just kill them. So this is a combo control deck, which has a lot of cards like Disfigure, a lot of single target removal, and Anoint with Affliction, Go for the Throat, and Shoulder's Edict, and a couple Wraths and Deadly Cover Up, trying to get a longer game where it can play Doomsday Excruciator, then Jace or Animator Restless Reef, and just kill you with a mill combo.
I really think this combo is super cool. I've lost to it before, and I remember the first time I was fascinated. But I have to say something that I noticed also here on Cora's player information. What is the key card that you don't want to see play against you? And she's telling us that I'd buy the commentators a drink if we don't see Imudane's recruited at all in the match. So let's see who Cora is playing against and if there's any Imudane recruiter or not. Ah, we are
So,
a lot of luck. No drinks for us. So tell me about this Just Say Convoke that Lady of the Crease decided to bring here
Oh
this week.
man, I really wanted a
so
Dr. Pepper.
Jeskai Convoke is a deck that's been in and out for this standard format. It is a deck that tries to use Novice Inspector and Spyglass Sirens as 1 mana creatures that come with an artifact token. Then the idea is on turn 2, you play the card Gleeful Demolition to turn that artifact token into 3/1/1s. And you can either convoke out a Knight Errant of Eos as early as turn 2, or simply just have 4 creatures in play, which you can then buff with Case of the Gateway Express, Ibidane's Recruiter, which Cora mentioned, and Defaced Gallery, which is half of the new room card from Duskmourn, which is a big new pickup for this deck. I think this is a really interesting deck. I think picking up Painter Studio Defaced Gallery lets you have a bit more card draw and lets you play a longer game. But one problem with this deck is the mana base. You're trying to play 1 drops in 3 different colors. So there's a lot of hoping it comes together. But if it comes together, it's a very powerful deck.
I'm excited to see how this plays out. So let's take a look at our players. This is a very important match here this week. Whoever wins the match does get into the top 8 of the VML, and that means an invitation for the regional championships and the VML championships as well. And Lady of the Crease did say that she does not want to see malicious eclipse, and we know that on the other side, Cora does have 3 on the sideboard, but getting into the match already, Lady of the Crease third one playing the Warden. What did you think of this end on the Dimir side? Enough answers for the Convoke deck?
This is a hand that you have to keep, but you're not. This is a hand that you're fine keeping. You have cheap removal spells, and you can try to keep up. You really hope to not see a Gleeful Demolition start. So Cora is very lucky that LadyOfTheCrease did not have the Gleeful Demolition. Instead, it's just 3 creatures on turn 2, which is, I'm sure, a lot more manageable.
Oh, but there's the Knight Errant of Eos as a top deck, and that card can bring a lot more value, and exactly the engine that Lady of the Crease really needed here.
Yeah, and we'll see if she goes to cast the Knight Errant, or if she goes to attack with her creatures and try and just get Cora dead. And she chooses to attack. That's just 2 damage coming in thanks to that timely removal. But now she gets to draw 2 cards, essentially, off of that Painter's Studio.
And why are people deciding now to bring this new room into the deck of Jeskai Convoke? I've seen it a lot. It's quite powerful. Do you like it in this specific deck?
I think it's a huge add to the deck. It lets you it's just a way to draw more cards. And one thing the deck struggles with sometimes is a lack of card flow, where if your opponent plays a board wipe, the only card draw you have is Knight Errant of Eos, and that requires you to have creatures in play for it to draw cards. And this is a way to pump your attackers, make sure you can attack better, but it also means that you get to draw cards and you kind of do both parts of your game plan at once. I think it's a very solid glue card. And
And we
after pumping the
see,
attackers, now she's drawing the cards.
yeah, I mean, a lot of advantage, as you said, and we see the Gleeful Demolition top deck, but right now not doing much. And we see Cora already playing that chase. Uh, and we know that at 6 mana, there's a combo that might happen.
Yeah, and she has the Doomsday Excruciator in hand. So she just needs to keep herself and the Jace alive for 2 more turns, and that's the game. And the Jace is able to protect itself a bit by giving creatures -3/-0. So the pressure's on Lady of the Crease here to just kill Cora as soon as possible.
Very interesting. We see another case being drawn there by Lady of the Crease. And as you say, Cora does need to stay alive and also protect that Jace to be able to combo off. And I would like to see the combo in action.
Yeah, and Lady of the Crease draws 2 cards with it, essentially, has a Merix that she can play next turn. And this is 3 creatures in play. Oh, and that disfigures a huge pickup. Now there's enough removal that even if the room is unlocked, unless there's an Imidane's Recruiter off the top, there's just not going to be enough creatures to kill the Jace.
We might see here a combo by Cora, which is going to be a very exciting. I mean, it's not the nicest way to go with no cards left in your deck, but it's definitely fun to see that these kind of decks that maybe you see more on best of one can also make their way into best of 3 and be very competitive.
So there is the Imidane's Recruiter. It looks like we're not going to be getting a drink, but the Disfigure or animating the Reef as a way to answer the Recruiter lets Jace survive and should just be the kill. Oh, the Poisson Poisson means that the Reef has to actually trade off for the Knight Errant, which is a bit of a problem. Looks like Cora's thinking about it.
So Cora can block and use the mana to disfigure.
Right, but the problem is then the land dies, so she won't be able to combo on fair next turn. So they let it go, let Jace go down to 1 loyalty, and say, I'm going to excruciate her, and I'm just going to kill you the slow way. Because with the Restless Reef in play, it's still going to mill Lady of the Crease for 4 next turn. And we actually know, Knight Errant shuffles, so we don't actually know anything about the bottom cards of the deck.
But now the thing is that Cora also will get an extra card, right? Because of the demon, or is that something that I'm missing? Wouldn't Cora mill out first?
Cora has a Restless Reef in play, which says when it attacks, target player mills 4 cards. So Cora can get to attack Lady of the Crease next turn with the Restless Reef and mill her out. And it looks like Faye is choosing to minus Jace to make sure that this is just the one opportunity, one turn to get the kill.
And you're completely right. Faye did an amazing play, and I mean, obviously, showing a lot of experience with the deck. Restless Reef can finish the game. So now all that uh, Cora really needs to do is not die this turn.
Yeah, so she just needs to remember to block. And she sees the line. And 5 life is enough. We see the Restless Reef get animated. And
And
that
there
will
it
be game
is.
1 going to Cora Stobie.
Oh wow! Look at that, milling all the remaining cards. What a win here. And I have to say, I love this combo, and I didn't even see the Restless Reef. Obviously, it's there. It's so strong, and great choice by Cora. That turn, not blocking with a Restless Reef, and just deciding to go for the Disfigure without blocking. Very
Yeah,
well played there. Sideboard wise, who do you think is going to have the advantage now?
I think Cora gets a lot from sideboarding. She gets access to multiple copies of Malicious Affliction, which is just a very potent wrath in the matchup. So Malicious Eclipse. 3 wraths. She also gets to board out some of her cards that are worse in the matchup, like some of the single target removal or the counter magic that might not line up as well, especially against Cavern of Souls. Um, Meanwhile, Lady of the Crease is going to get access to cards like Protect the Negotiators, which is a very powerful counterspell, but Convoke isn't the best at always holding up 3 mana to cast it, and it's going to be a pretty big ask to actually have that up at all times.
It's always difficult for me to sideboard, especially if I'm playing an aggro deck on the play, because every card that you take out of your deck, it diminishes your synergy and your strategy to try to prevent what your opponent is doing. So knowing how to sideboard in the right spot without compromising your deck's plan, it's actually quite challenging for me. What
Yeah,
do you
it's
usually
really,
do?
I mean, it really depends on the matchup. Like sometimes you have to say, okay, I have these cards that I can cut, these cards that I can't. So I need to know, so I just know what I'm doing without overboarding. Sometimes you say, I'm going to switch plans entirely. I'm going to ignore my game 1 plan. If I have some combo I can board out, maybe I board it out and just say, I'm just a control deck. There's all sorts of different things you can do. And like I mentioned earlier, that initial 7 had mana base issues, but this is a really decent 6, which has a 1-drop on 1, resolute reinforcements on 2 to follow up, and Scry with the Warden. This is a solid keep from Lady of the Crease.
Looks
Um,
much better than the initial one, and I mean, knowing how to mull is also a very important aspect of the game and sometimes quite challenging. On the other side though, I see that Cora does struggle on the mana. I only see 2 swamps.
yeah, that hand was very risky, where there's 2 swamps, 2 Jaces, so the second copy was redundant. But at the same time, you have some of your best cards in Duress, which can take Gleeful Demolition, and Disfigure, which is a removal spell that kills Warden on turn 1. It's a very tough decision.
Now this other end, like that the second end seems a bit better. The Deuce to go for Throats and the Doomslay. The Doomsday is quite slow, but I mean, you get to the Deuce to draw extra cards, you get some removal, which is exactly what Core needs to be doing against Lady of the Crease, right?
I think this is the type of hand you're unenthusiastic to keep, but you kind of have to. I really like the decision to bottom the Go for the Throat. This is a token deck that goes wide, and often they're only going to have one creature that really matters and is worth killing. Like, there's 2 Resolute reinforcements, but those don't really matter. What matters is that Warden of the Sky can grow. Oh, and that's Protect the Negotiators. That's a huge pickup.
That's exactly the card you were talking about. Great counter there against Cora. And I noticed that Faye is keeping like the full control on Arena. Do you also do that, or you just let that automatically go?
I like to do full control in matches where there are like substantial stakes, like say an invitation to VML champs and a regional championship beforehand.
That
It's
makes sense.
it's a bit of a hassle to do normally, but it's really worth it for the sake of making sure that your opponent doesn't get any information from priority tells. Where if you play a land on one and then arena automatically passes, your opponent knows that you don't have like a 1 mana card.
Ooh, look at this top deck. The malicious eclipse, but we know about the protected negotiators on the other side.
Yeah, it looks so tempting here, but if it happens, it'll just get countered. And this is exactly why Lady of the Crease boarded and protect the negotiators.
Oh wow, paying off here so much, this sideboard card. I mean, both sideboard cards great, but the counter just winning here, especially with Lady of the Crease being on the play.
Choosing to activate the Warden instead of attacking is a very heads-up play against future copies of Malicious Eclipse. But this Jace is just going to come down and stabilize Cora, where I'll just uptick on the Warden of the Inner Sky, and suddenly this is 6 Loyalty Planeswalker. You have 4/1/1s. What are they going to do?
Especially if Cora manages to draw an untapped land, because Faye did pick up Deadly Cover Up, which is another great board wipe.
And that's Knight of Errant of Eos, tapping 5 creatures, so it can find other Knight Errants, it can find Imidanes. I think you really just want to find Imidane's Recruiter here if you are Lady of the Crease, and then you're happy with any other card.
No, just a Spyglass and a Clockwork here, so no Imudane's Recruiter yet. There's a land, but it's tapped, unfortunately, for Cora here.
Yeah, I think Cora might maybe supposed to downtick the Jace to try and draw to an untapped land. But that said, Lady of the Crease is doing a lot to bluff that she has another Protect Negotiators in hand, choosing not to put out the 1-drops, and just being very aware that she loses to a Wrath. So she's just making sure that Cora has to play around it and respect it a bit.
I'm trying to see how many counter spells. So 4 Protect Negotiators, yeah, that's quite a lot, and looks
Yeah,
like...
we've already seen one. What's the odds that there's a second?
Oh
Oh, and
wow,
that's the cover-up.
look at the
That's the
payoff
cover-up mana.
here.
Exiling to Eclipse, so Cora gets to get rid of presumably all of the Ranger Knight Errants or all of the Protects. We'll see which one she chooses.
It's tempting to go for the Protect with that Doomsday in hand and the Jace in the board as well.
Yeah, it's a very powerful threat. And she's looking, double checking how Lady of the Crease sideboarded, making sure she knows exactly what's in the deck.
That's also a very heads up play, because it might go on a game 3, right? Cora doesn't know, so just checking also for the future games what might happen and what Lady of the Crease decided to do is
Yeah,
very relevant.
that Imidane's Recruiter is an incredible pickup here. Lady of the Crease is going to probably generate 5 creatures this turn, and having the Recruiter to pump them and actually attack this Jace down before the Doomsday Excruciator can come into play is absolutely huge.
Definitely, and I'm just thinking, if Cora does manage to get another untapped land, but
An untapped
no,
land would have been game there. It would have been enough to just combo and mill Lady of the Crease out.
that's an untapped land, but a bit too late. But that recruiter can change the game completely.
Yeah, it's a very potent threat where if Lady of the Crease plays it, that's 11 power of creatures in play.
But does Lady of the Crease go face or goes towards the Jace? Oh
Oh,
wow.
yeah, Percussionist. That's a very disciplined play. Saying, I'm not going to commit this Imminence Recruiter to the board. And just saying, I'm going to use this to kill you. I don't care about using this for value.
But another Jace there.
And cracking the clue. And that Duress is an interesting pickup. The Jace is going to die for sure. We'll see if Cora spends the disfigure on something this turn.
Looks like
She
on the Spyglass Siren here.
That makes sense. She wants to make sure LadyOfTheCrease has less creatures in play.
Wow,
She's
just
going to
going
play the
for the
Excretion later.
Doomsday.
With the Jason hand, this is a kill next turn.
Yeah,
And
I
once
mean,
again, there's a 1-turn window.
all that Cora needs to do is not die. So let's see how much this Imudane recruit is for. I don't think it's enough.
It's not enough. Even if she didn't block, Faye would only be taking 13 and would be able to Jace to kill LadyOfTheCrease here.
Oh wow, I have to
So
say I'm surprised on how consistent this combo has been because every time that I try to play this kind of decks, it doesn't seem that consistent, but it looks like here Core really optimizing the deck and really going for that combo both games and just working. I mean,
yeah, her deck has carded selection in Farsight Ritual and gets to draw cards with Deduce. So she's able to dig enough to see her combo every game. And
congratulations to Cora. Faye is going into the regional championships and also the VML championship. That is a really, really exciting. And we have our first contestant in the top eight. And did you expect this result, Nor, or did it surprise you the outcome of the games here?
I was slightly surprised. I thought that Convoke was pretty solidly favored in game one because the answer suite that Dimir has isn't really suited to beating a turn 2 Knight Errant Devios on the play or turn 3 Imidane's Recruiter pumping the entire team. And post board Protect the Negotiators is a very powerful anti control tool. Where I was expecting Convoke to be favored game one and Dimir to be favored post board. But Dimir just took both those games in a really convincing sweep.
I have to say, I am really impressed by how both players played these games. I think they played really well, making very disciplined decisions, as you mentioned before. And I mean, either of them would deserve to go into the regional championships, but a top 16 in the VML is already a great accomplishment. So, congratulations to both players, and especially, of course, to Cora on advancing into the top eight. But now we are ready for our next matchup of the week. So, we have four total matchups. This is going to be the second one. So let's take a look at the players and what they decided to bring here. Starting with Amy, and Amy decided to bring Jeskai Convoke. So we saw this deck before. Why do you think so many people decided to bring these super aggressive deck into the table?
Well, part of it is knowing play draw. In the top cut of the VML, the player with the higher seed gets to choose to be on the play. And in both of these matches, the player on the higher seed chose Convoke, which is a deck that's notoriously much better on the play than it is on the draw. And having that certainty means that you're just guaranteed to have some advantage. I know Amy personally is a bit of a Convoke one trick where she tends to play the deck a lot and she has expertise on that deck. So it's not too surprising that she would default there. She is a Convoke player, and why not play it in a high stakes match where she's on the play?
I have to say that you said really makes sense, and I didn't think about it, but yeah, exactly. They know the play draw that makes a huge difference, and I mean that makes a lot of sense here on why to bring Jeskai Convoke, knowing that you're in the play. Let's see what Amy is playing against, and I think I'm getting a bit of a deja vu because Ashame here playing Dimir mid-range, but it's a different version. It's not the combo deck. It's not the Jace with Doomsday. It's more a Dimir mid-range kind of deck. Do you think this deck has a better chance, knowing as well that Ashame here is going to be on the draw?
I think this is a lot better than Dimir Control is in the matchup. You get access to really strong roadblocks like Preacher of the Schism that can just block the Convoke creatures for days. It can also just attack in and generate a blocker to gain some advantage and win the type of attrition war they want to face. I also want to shout out that Asha, who is playing this deck, is a very, very competent Dimir player. They, I believe, won the Canadian RC last cycle and qualified for Worlds with Team Worldly Council. They're a very strong player. And I mentioned how Amy's in her comfort zone with Jeskai. Asha's in their comfort zone with Dimir. So I'm excited to see two very strong players playing decks that they have a lot of experience on and seeing how it goes.
I'm really excited as well. So let's take a look here as the players start the games. And as we know, it's going to be Amy on the play. Ooh, okay. So the mana base, you told us before that the mana base for Jeskai Convoke is a bit awkward, and we saw it there.
Yeah, you really need the mana base to cooperate with you in order to win with this deck. Where, like, if that opening hand had access to all three colors, this would be great. But instead, now we have this hand where if we get a red source on turn 2, if the top card is exactly a red source, that's a turn 2 Knight Errant. But if it's not, we're kind of just dead in the water.
Okay, so we do have the Novice Inspector. Very risky here, but Amy didn't really have another choice. I mean, very poor mulligans, unfortunately, here for him, Amy. And that's exactly what a deck like Dimir wants. So Asher really here happy to see these mul to 5. Because usually the Dimir deck does have a lot of answers. Now we do not get to see Asha's
Oh,
side.
that's the red source. This is
Oh,
incredible.
look at that. Oh,
This
oh
is
my god. This is perfect. So
going in.
now we have the Gleeful and the Knight as well.
Asha said the one thing they didn't want to see was turn 2 Knight Errant. Well, I'm sorry for them, but that's exactly what they're seeing. Turn 2 Knight Errant, no cards left in hand. Every single card was used on this. And that is so much power. That's 9 power in play on turn 2, if I'm correct. And that is a fast clock.
I cannot imagine what Asha is feeling right now because Asha was like, okay, my opponent is on the play, but they did move to 5, so nope. Here
Oh, in
she is.
case of the Gateway Express. This is a
Oh
way to pump the
wow.
team, kill the blocker. That is the perfect top deck. Again, Amy with the
Wow.
absolute perfect series of draws to just win this game.
I have to say, I was not thinking that the Jeskai Convoke deck was going to win here after I saw that mul to 5 with just one land, but just things lined up very perfectly. Sideboard wise, I guess we're already talking sideboard. I was not expecting this, but what are we expecting to see? Same kind of style as we saw against the other Dimir deck.
Well, not quite, because the other Dimir deck is a control deck. This is a mid-range deck. This is more creature-oriented. You want to keep cards like Gateway Express in. And cards like Protect the Negotiators get a lot more dubious when your opponent is playing creatures and can punish you for like holding 3 mana up by just attacking with a Preacher of the Schism, and suddenly your opponent's drawing cards and getting value.
Oh wow. We're already going on to game 2, and Asha here is starting with that um, Spyglass Siren. On the other side, Amy has a much not as powerful hand, but more consistent hand than we saw previously.
Yeah, this is a hand that really, it's a lot of setup without a payoff, where she really needs a Knight Errant of Eos or a Imidane's Recruiter or Case or even Painter Studio to face Gallery. It's just some way to reward her for having a bunch of 1/1s that don't do anything by themselves.
That keep deep covered bat already. Oh, you
That's the
saying
Imidane's Recruiter.
you were exactly talking about this card, and now I mean Amy able to deploy 2 creatures in this turn, and next turn setting up for some Imudane's Recruiter and attacking here with both creatures. That makes sense.
Yeah, trading the 1/1 for the bat and then suddenly having access to 2 full more cards is absolutely incredible for Amy, and she's very happy to have that happen. Asha wants to put a counter on the bat or maybe draw a card, it's unclear. And looks like they have the lands they need. They wanted to grow the bat so it's able to block and gain enough life to just win the race.
I mean, the lifelink is quite important there, playing that third land and another one.
Oh,
Ooh,
the
that's going to
second
take care.
bat.
Oh, that's going to be so rough. And I mean, Amy can draw and can use the map, but that is not ideal.
And this is a case where Amy has like 3/1/1s in play. Oh, that Knight Errant is incredible top deck. But Amy has 3 small creatures in play, and they don't really do that much by themselves. And in the face of the bat's lifelink is canceling them out in the race. So she's not even winning the race.
And we know about the curiosity there that can also represent a lot of card draw, but here Asha does have a bit of awkward attackers because they probably don't want to attack with the creatures that die for the spyglass siren, and also that bat that just trades off as well.
Yeah, and if the bat trades off, that means that Amy can play that resolute reinforcement that's trapped underneath the bat. So it's really disastrous if that happens.
Ooh, another good pickup, Get Lost here, that can choose any of the bats to bring things back into hand, so that's also quite good.
Yeah, and here's the question: what creatures do you tap? I think you want to tap definitely want to tap the Percussious and the Inspector. But the question is, do you tap the Siren? Because the Siren is your blocker for all of the flyers. And I think Amy's choosing not to tap the Siren. I really like that play. Making it so your opponent can't just draw 3 cards off of Enduring Curiosity is very important here. Because it's the way that Asha can just run away with the game.
So that resolves, and let's see. Only one pickup, but Novice Inspector is a good card. Does Amy keep committing to the board?
I mean, she doesn't have a white source up. Like, the awkward mana base is an issue.
No. There's the Get Lost next turn that can take care of something, but this Curiosity is also going to be quite the threat. And I feel like Asha needs some removal here.
I mean, they're looking to draw cards or trade off material. Like, this is a surprisingly aggressive attack. I don't know what I'm reading into with this, but looks like they just want to trade off material.
Is there a possibility of a board wipe happening next turn, preparing for something like that?
Very well could be. There are 2 Malicious Eclipses and 2 Gix's commands that are probably in right now.
Because then it makes sense that you want your Curiosity to be an enchantment instead of a creature.
Well, Curiosity doesn't die to any of the board wipes, which is why it was interesting as an aggressive move. But it looks like Amy is respecting Asha and just playing around Urtai. That's what it is. Where an Urtai Resurrected would absolutely blow Amy out in attacks here. So we'll see, does Asha have the Urtai? And they don't play it out. Taking 2.
Can it be double removal?
I think Asha has the Urtai and it's just being very disciplined about it. And it's just saying, I'm going to start drawing 2 extra cards per turn. You can't keep up with that. And just saying, I have the long game. I have the inevitability. I'm just not going to let you get lost to my creature and just make sure I have my advantage on the board.
If that's the case, that's extremely well played here and just showing a lot of experience with the deck. I'm curious to see if we're going to see the air try or not now.
There's the Get Lost. And it resolves. Interesting.
I mean, there's still one draw there for Asha.
Yeah, I am very curious as to what they have because they have been missing land drops.
It's difficult to not know what it's in their hand, right? Because usually we get access to both hands, and it's actually quite interesting. I like to not know because it also makes us to be in Amy's position.
Oh, and there's the Gix's
command.
Destroying all the creatures and getting back 2 creatures which can then start attacking. This does give Amy a window to cast Trained Troops. That half of... Oh! She even draws the second Imidanes.
Oh, wow. That needs to be played this turn, though.
Yeah, so she's choosing to play the Imidanes and attack for 7. Choosing the aggressive line as opposed to generating value. I like it. Saying you can't keep up with the Curiosity, but can you keep up with my clock?
And Asha does know that Amy is the second Midrange recruiter, so things are going to get quite interesting here. There's the baton. Ooh,
Oh, and the
malicious
eclipse!
eclipse.
Oh, that's
Oh,
brutal. I
that
think
is
Asha's
brutal.
just gonna take this game. They have all the answers, and Amy's kind of been run out of resources.
Oh
They're gonna
wow.
start drawing extra cards with this bat and the spyglass siren, and I don't really see a way out for Amy.
Definitely not a land. I mean, there's still a draw from the clue, but
Yeah, but it would need to be something really spectacular. And Spire Bluff Canal is unfortunately not that spectacular.
no, not right now.
Where Asha now gets to draw 2 full cards from each of their creatures, from both of
Also
their
gaining
creatures connected.
life. I mean, it's going to
Yeah,
be really difficult. Asha still at 10, attacking with the bat will put them into 11 or even
oh, and they're
more because
exploring
there's
onto
the
the bat.
maps.
And do they choose to keep the bat knowing that they don't know what's in Amy's hand? Or are they
Deciding
trying
not
to just
to.
hit a land? That's an Urtai.
Ooh. It goes to the graveyard. Yeah, and we just see here Amy conceding. So that does mean that we're going to have a game number 3. And honestly, that Geek's command into Malicious Eclipse was just evil. That's
It,
exactly what the Boros deck doesn't want to see.
it was completely backbreaking. Like Asha was just able to stabilize long enough to have the rats come into play. And Torch the Towers are coming in as answers to the bat. I don't hate this. I think it's really powerful. And boarding out a Gleeful is something you don't see every day.
This end is kind of awkward. I mean, there's one mana. There's potential for this to be very explosive, but Amy does need to get that second land drop.
I think this is the sort of one-lander you kind of have to keep with this deck. Like, if you're not keeping this deck, if you're not keeping the hand, ooh. But this is exactly the type of 6 you want to have. It doesn't have turn 2 Knight Errant exactly, but it has a lot of creatures. You get to just bottom a land. This is a very explosive start.
And I like here the decision of Amy not to mull, because usually, as you said, it's a risk that probably is worth taking with that first hand, but at the same time, this is the last game. There's no more game, and this is a win and in into the regional championship and the VML championships. And you don't wanna not get that second land, not being able to win because of that, and then how can you forgive yourself?
Yeah, and here Amy has to choose between deploying 2 1-drops and playing reinforcements. I definitely agree with playing out the 1-drops. It looks like from priority, Asha has a cut down, or is at least choosing to represent one. And we'll see if there is actually one after the Spyglass resolves.
Asha can also be just holding full control, maybe, but it
Yeah, they absolutely could be. Maybe they have Phantom Interference and Malicious Eclipse and are saying, you know what, I'm going to let your creatures live. Who can say?
but now this is going to be so good here for Amy with this knight ready to go. And I mean, there's not really an answer for this knight right now. Even the malicious eclipse does not take care of it.
I really like how Amy chose to not play out the Resolute Reinforcements to tap for the Knight Errant. Asha has represented that they have a cut down, and playing around that and not trying to get the extra greedy value in by playing reinforcements first shows that she is being careful and just not going to die to the trick that Asha has been representing. It's very mindful.
Very demure.
Well, I don't know. I don't think having a 4/4 and 3 1/1s on play on turn 3 is particularly demure.
I mean, it definitely is where Amy wants to be here. If it's the one chance, this is it, right? One win and in into the regional championship, into the VML championship finals. I mean, she's
Yeah,
close.
it's very close. Exploring onto the Spyglass Siren. Interesting. And
Ooh,
ooh, Knight
another
Errant on
night.
top is huge. Where like this is going to be a huge attack. I'm assuming there is some removal spell for the Knight Errant, or else Asha's in deep trouble.
Even if Asha then does remove now the knight, then malicious eclipse, there's still the reinforcements into another knight. So this is going to be a particular difficult situation for Asha to deal with. And I'm interested to see how they navigate this game.
Yeah, this is a lot of pressure, especially with the second knight on top of the library. Where, oh, and there is the go for the throat. That means there definitely is the malicious eclipse in hand. Um,
I mean, which usually would be great, but
but it's not going to be enough. Resolute Reinforcements having flash means that Amy can just have 5 creatures in play and then play out a second. Oh, Asha's playing it
no
slow.
malicious.
Maybe I think there might be a malicious, but Asha's holding up a counterspell instead.
Very interesting. And how do you manage these play your things, commit to the board, but at the same time, if there's some removal, to still have potential to then come back from that malicious eclipse or geeks command that we see.
So the theory I've heard a lot of people talk about Convoke is that's a deck that's like a coiled viper. At any point, it can uncoil and snap at you, but it has to know and choose when to do that. And that's the dance between committing to the board and pushing damage, where you have to hold that coil up so that way if your opponent ever gives you an opportunity, you can snap and just kill them.
That's a great pickup.
Yeah.
Recruiter there is huge.
And the choice between the Warden and the Spyglass Siren is surprisingly hard. I think I prefer having access to the Warden just because it's a powerful creature that can grow. But Spyglass Siren does generate a token on entering.
A very difficult position now for Amy, attacking with that spyglass, leaving
Right now,
Ash at 12.
Amy is just hoping that Asha does not have a copy of Gix's command. It could be used to destroy all creatures with power 2 or less, and then make Amy sacrifice the Knight Errant, which would be devastating.
Let's see if that's the case. Even if there's a geeks command, it would be great for Asha, but it wouldn't be end of game with all these resources that Amy stacked up with 2 spyglass sirens, 1 novice inspector, the reinforcements, and Imudane recruiter. But definitely would put Asha in a better position.
Yeah, like if the board is wiped this turn, Amy gets to flash and reinforcements, then play Recruiter and attack for 7. Oh, and a map is being cracked on the Curiosity. Asha really needs to have a malicious eclipse right here, right now, in order to have a chance. Do they have it?
It is now or never. The winner win for the regional championship and the VML championship as well.
And let's see, do they attack? I like choosing to hold Curiosity back. It lets it block the Knight Errant. And I think Amy's supposed to draw a card here. She doesn't really want to commit more to the board because a Wrath here would be terrifying. But at the same time, Resolute Reinforcements does kind of just kill Asha.
So playing here the reinforcements, and next turn there's the Imudane's recruiter.
And I mean, I think if you're aiming here, you just have to commit on the recruiter. Like, you have this wide board.
There might be an air tie, some answers for that, but it looks like Amy decided not to do that.
She's been playing around Phantom Interference all game. That's counter target spell unless they pay 2. So I understand that she's just saying, hey, Asha, I know you have it. You're not going to get a chance to use it. And she's just attacking with all, saying, if you don't have anything, you're going to take 8 damage. And that's a lot of damage.
5,
It's
6,
a
7,
very
8,
vulnerable position.
9, 11. That leaves Asha at 1.
Well, there's a removal spell for the Knight Errant.
So there it is, go for throat. But now Malicious Eclipse would be amazing.
It would completely wipe Amy's board. And I'm very curious as to see what Asha has. Have they been slow rolling Malicious Eclipse and absolutely just leveling Amy? And she cracks the clue, draws the land. Does she commit more?
The thing is that even a Malicious Eclipse, then next turn Amy can do something like a Novice Inspector and Imudane's Recruit, or a Siren and Imudane's Recruit, and if she does get an untapped land, she gets to do 2 creatures and Imudane's Recruit. So
Yeah, it's a lot of damage. But if Asha has the Malicious Eclipse and also the Phantom Interference that Amy's been playing around all game, then maybe the Imudane's Recruit will get countered. And Amy's just playing out the last creature saying, you have to have the Wrath, otherwise I'm just killing you.
if
And
that's the
does Asha
case,
have it?
this game was beautifully played by Asha, because the patience is masterful. I would have deployed that Eclipse 5 turns ago.
And we'll
And I
see.
guess that's why Asha is here still on the top 16.
They are taking some time. I would not be surprised to see a Gix's command. And it looks like Malicious Eclipse mana. Yup. Do they attack? They
Oh,
do
wow.
attack, indicating that they have something in hand, some way to answer the recruiter. Because otherwise they'd be dead on board. And Amy has to go for it here.
This game has been beautifully played, I have to say.
Incredibly patient play from Asha. And does Amy play the Immidanes into what's essentially a face-up Phantom Interference? Does she make them have it? Or does she keep playing around it and try and just develop a board otherwise?
And it looks like Amy is very torn, but going for that map there, also being quite patient.
Yeah, just choosing not to commit. Just saying, I'm going to have this Immidane's Recruiter in hand forever. And you're going to have to respect her, or you'll just randomly die. And
Wow.
does the Spyglass Siren get countered? It does not.
And we see another map token.
Yeah. I don't know how I feel about making both of them 2/2s. It's a bit awkward into Gix's Commander or Second Eclipse, but it is better against single target removal.
And let's see here if Asha does play a removal spell.
Could be a removal spell, could be any flash creature. Like a flash creature does threaten to draw cards. Let's go for the throat. Does Asha attack for 4? They do.
Draw another card. That's what the Dimir deck does the best. Now, Asha really managing to come back from this game.
Yeah, it feels like every turn the game is just slowly slipping away and away from Amy. And does she go for it this turn? Does she keep coiling?
But Amy also being super patient. I think another player that is not as experienced with the deck and this particular matchup would have already committed and lost the game before.
Yeah, and here's the cut down for the Spyglass Siren. The removal spell. Amy's going to play the Warden of the Inner Skies, scry 1, and just try and set up something to just get her out of here. The Gleeful Demolition would be extremely powerful if her spells resolve.
That's not it.
Oh, is she choosing to keep land on top so she can cast the adventure half of Immodane's Recruiter?
But it's a tapped land, so it's a bit awkward.
Well, Amy cracks the clue and finds a second
Another
recruiter.
recruiter.
And we'll see what Asha has. Oh, and that's an Urtai killing the Warden, presumably. And that's I count 11 damage if the Reef is activated, not enough to kill Amy, but enough to put a lot of pressure on her. Where
Attacking
if
with
she
both
doesn't,
creatures.
well, Amy's dead next turn if she doesn't have multiple blockers, because animating the Reef means you've got 3 creatures that deal half the life total. So this is a very potent threat.
And at this point, Asha drew so many cards that the chance that they don't have some removal spell is very unlikely.
Yeah, and I think Amy's just supposed to play train troops, try and make 2/2/2s. And if there is the Phantom Interference, she pulls up the concede button.
I mean,
And there is the
and
Phantom Interference, making a 2/2 even.
oh wow, the patience really paying off. Congratulations for Asha winning the game here and advancing into the top 8, already qualifying for the regional championship and also the VML finals. And I have to say, this was a game of mastery. Both players, if I was on any of these players' seat, I would have lose
That
immediately.
was
But they played so patiently and so well.
that was phenomenally played.
Congratulations to Asha. Both players played really well. Congratulations on both are making top 16, but obviously, especially here to Asha on that top 8. And we already have 2 players qualified for top 8 here today, but we are going to show 2 more as we have 2 more matches for today. So let's take a look at our next match for the day, our third match. And it's going to be Gdinut. I'm not even sure how to pronounce this. So obviously, hopefully, I'm not Gdinut. Okay, thank you, Phoebe. On Mono Red Prowess, and this deck is very strong. Why do you think some players decide to play this Mono Red instead of a Convoke deck or other kinds of
So
aggro decks?
this is Quintinoli's list from Worlds, or very close to it. It's a very tuned, extremely efficient deck that just kills your opponent fast. You get to play the mice package of Heartfire Hero, Emberheart Challenger, Manifold Mouse, Monstrous Rage, and Rockface Village, which lets you push out a lot of damage and get kills as early as turn 3 with the perfect draw. And you also get to have access to more powerful late game tools like Screaming Nemesis, which shuts off life gain, and Witchstalker Frenzy, which is extremely potent removal. And this is just a very powerful deck. I really like how all the packages play with each other, and it's a very powerful deck that's extremely additive. And
I
it's just
have
a
to
really good choice.
I agree with you, and I have to say you were talking about Screaming Nemesis, and I've lost to this card. And a very cool place that players sometimes do is just dealing damage into their own Screaming Nemesis to make sure that not life gain is activated. So sometimes they will play Frenzy on the Nemesis, deal 5 damage to any to the opponent's face, and then that player cannot gain life for the rest of the game, which is a quite powerful play to make against some of the life gaining decks. So something to keep an eye on, and let's see what they are playing against. So looks like they're playing against JZJaws, and JZJaws has been here in the VML multiple times. I have seen him here a lot of times in the VML. Doing pretty well and playing Azorius Tempo. So this is a deck that tries to get Oculus from the graveyard and the Gene as well. How do you feel about this deck?
This is a very powerful deck and deck to watch out for. This is a deck where if you don't have graveyard hate, it is extremely consistent at getting a fast abhorrent Oculus or Haughtygen onto the battlefield, and then being able to protect it with some amount of just protection spells and counter spells. This list notably only has the one negate and one phantom interference. A lot of more stock lists play more than one interference. But founding the third path is a huge innovation for this deck and allows this deck to be extremely consistent with enabling Oculus on turn 3, either hardcasting it or by milling over it or discarding it and then playing a helping hand to get it back.
That's going to be a very interesting matchup. So let's see how it plays off. Do you think any of these players is favored here in this matchup? Knowing that I believe might be JZJaws on the Oh no, it's JD not on the play, so mono red on the play. That
So I think most of the time GDI will be favored, but sometimes just the turn 3 Oculus, turn 2 Oculus starts from JZJaws are what will get you. And they just need to avoid those aggressive starts that just get you dead fast.
a lot of damage already there. Shard of course, perfect way to put that gene into the graveyard already.
Yep, and there is the helping hand to get it back. Screaming Nemesis is a huge force here where Jaws is going to be down to just 11 life on turn 3. And they get to helping hand the Haughty back. Oh, and they're choosing to recommission it. Interesting.
So that costs one more mana, but it does enter with a +1/+1. And now the spells are discounted by one, so Moment of Truth can't be cast here.
Yeah,
I-
and hiecing out the Heartfire hero. We'll see what Jaws chooses to attack with. This is a lot of power. This is a lot of damage being projected, and maybe the. I'm assuming that the Hired Claw is getting blocked because you really don't want to block the Nemesis or the Heartfire hero. Because it just feels so bad to lose to Monstrous Rage on Heartfire hero if you block it.
And here, choosing not to use that chalk because the gene is still at 3 toughness. Yeah. 4 life. Things
Four
are
life is
getting close.
Four life is extremely precarious. If either of Gdinut's creatures get blocked, then Jaws just dies because when Nemesis is dealt damage, it deals that damage to the opponent, and when Heartfire Hero dies, it deals damage equal to its power. So neither of these creatures are blockable. So
But
the
they
shock is
are.
probably lethal.
Yeah, I think only Into the Flood Maw could like return the creatures into hand, maybe delay a bit.
There's a Forest Dispersal in hand is a removal spell for one of them for a turn, but one turn is not enough. And there's just no real removal for these sticky creatures. Oh, and negate for the shock.
Yeah, I think this is going to be game. I mean, not much that JZJaws can do here. And
Where
sometimes mono red on the plays just like this.
sometimes mono red just kills you.
Yeah, that's just how it goes.
And
And look at that. That's a lot of damage coming through. And
that's
it just
two
feels
creatures.
bad.
If either the hero or the nemesis gets blocked, Jaws dies. If either of them gets through, Jaws dies. There's not really a good solution.
I feel like the solution is the concede button here and moving on to the next game, hopefully with a better
That's probably
sideboard
it.
against this.
And there is a good sideboard. There are 4 full copies of Elspeth Smite in the sideboard for JC Jaws, as well as 3 temporary lockdown. So he has a lot of removal that there will be access to post board. Meanwhile, for Gdinut, those 3 lithomantic barrages in the sideboard are going to be fantastic. I'm also potentially interested in seeing if Twisted Fealty is a card that they bring in. It is good against exactly Oculus, but it might be worth it there.
Looks like they are doing the sideboard here. And somebody was commenting on how after foundations, there's a better shock. So shock is officially not the best removal in standard. I mean, maybe it was not already, but we always add shock as this card that if it's in standard, it's highly playable. There was nothing that was straight better. And now we do have something that is just better than shock. And magic is evolving fast.
Yeah, and they're figuring out the last couple cards to choose. Cutting a couple foundings, saying that I want to play control plan. I don't want to have more cards that get got by lockdown. And one thing that's interesting is that I don't see any graveyard hate from Gdinut's side. So reanimating these potent creatures is going to be a consistent plan throughout.
Turn 1, starting with that Art Fire Hero. And that card
And,
is very scary, especially with the mouse here.
yeah, and this Manifold Mouse is a very powerful threat. We'll see whether JZJaws chooses to soul partition one of the mice or to leave them in play for a temporary lockdown. It looks like he's choosing to lock down.
I mean, lockdown is going to be really good here. I'm going to take 4
Yes.
damage in the process, but that's not.
Oh, and choosing to as far as dispersal the Heartfire Hero. Just buy
Just
some
delaying the
time.
game. Hmm.
Yeah, lets them play out Audigen if they want to. Although if they do, it will probably get Witchstalkers frenzied.
So it looks like that's the play here, going for the Gene. 3 mana up. That can be the Frenzy.
Oh,
Going for the
Screaming
Nemesis
Nemesis.
here.
Because if you block the Nemesis with the Nemesis deals the 4th damage to the Jinn off the trigger. So it can't actually block the Nemesis. That's really heads up.
Very good play here. And I mean, now that temporary lockdown is not as great because he does not take care of the Nemesis. Into the Flood mode, though, is a
But
good pickup that can delay the game.
Soul Partition is just also a very nice card to have against Nemesis. Making it cost 5 mana is absolutely a lot, and that's a lot of mana to ask for in a later turn.
I'll be honest, I'm surprised that more decks don't play Soul Partition instead of the Get Lost. Do you have any idea why that might be?
Well, the reason they play Get Lost over Soul Partition is because Get Lost actually answers the card forever. Soul Partition, like when Gdinut draws the land they need, the threat will still be there. The card's not gone. Get Lost
Just
actually gets
delayed.
rid of the card. And I think actually answering it as opposed to just delaying it is huge.
And there it is, the Frenzy taking care of the Gene.
Let's see if the Jinn gets protectively soul partitioned. I don't really expect it, but
I
it's
don't
a
think
very,
that they can afford it.
yeah, it's a very. On choosing to soul partition the Screaming Nemesis means it's going to be uncastable for a while. And we'll see if Jaws chooses to take 7 here. Looks like they do, setting up this temporary lockdown because the Hired Claude is going to get into play.
But now this lockdown is going to be really, really good.
And that Elspeth Smite is a huge pickup. It's a 1 mana way to answer a Screaming Nemesis, exile it. You take 3 in the process, but that Nemesis is going to be gone.
But still no way to get anything back from the grave, the Gene, or Oculus, so no real way to win on JZJaws side yet. See the
And
Into the
Flood
Flood
Mod bouncing
mod.
the Nemesis, that makes sense. Playing Smite is extremely weak to the card Monstrous Rage there.
Another Soul Partition, and we see a lot of these sideboard cards that enter to delay the mono red deck. But at the same time, we don't see the Oculus, which all the games we haven't seen Oculus yet, which is the idea of the deck. It must be feel quite bad here for Jay Z.
Yeah, like Oculus is the best card in the deck and the reason to play it. And this attack with the Hardfire Hero is just unfortunately playing into the Elspeth Smite. And Jaws is just going to get got. The Soul Partition on the Nemesis is also powerful. And now Jaws is just stable. Oh, and there's the Oculus!
There it is. I
That's the
mean,
perfect draw.
even with Frenzy, it's still going to manifest thread. So that is
Yeah,
exactly what Jaws needed.
and I guarantee you, it's going to manifest another Oculus into play face down.
You think so? Let's see if you're right.
Guarantee it.
You can guarantee it. Okay, we will see.
That's the secret text of Oculus. It comes in and it just puts the second Oculus into play already.
Okay, let's see if your theory is correct. Oh, we cannot see it. Did we see it? Okay. I guess
I
we'll
didn't
discover.
I didn't catch a glimpse of it.
So the first Oculus is taken care of.
And Meticulous Archive, we're going to keep that Picklock Prankster on top. And it looks like I was incorrect. It was not a second Oculus.
No, unfortunately for Jaws here, I'm sure that they really wanted it to be an Oculus there. But look, that's a
And
great
both,
pickup, another prankster.
we're going to free the Fae, and that helping hand on the Oculus.
I
It's going
mean,
to be
there it
huge
is.
for stabilizing.
And it's going to be difficult now for Gdinut to come back from these, but also, I mean, Barrage is a nice card that could
Barrage
take
is a
care of the
powerful pickup
Oculus.
here. I mean, you get to swing with the Screaming Nemesis, and no matter how JZJaws blocks, the Witchstalker Frenzy can just kill one of the blockers to just get them. Alternatively, you can just let damage happen as you want. Oh, and the new damage rules
Oh,
let
wow.
you do 2 damage to the Picklock Prankster and the 1 damage to Face. Oh, it's 3 at once, right?
Yeah.
So are they choosing to kill both manifests or choosing to go Face? Going Face.
I mean, this does represent a lot of damage as well. I have to say, this new damage rule, I still haven't gotten used to it. But some people said that it's like it was before 6th edition, but I was not playing by then, so I have no idea what that means.
I don't think I was alive then.
Oh, wow. Look at that lightning strike.
That lightning strike
Thank
is
you for
powerful.
making me feel extremely old.
Phoebe,
The
you're not
Screaming
old.
Nemesis. You're a little bit old.
Oh,
I am surprised to not see a Screaming Nemesis pre-combat. It looks like I'm not sure exactly what this play means.
I guess we'll find
Perhaps
out.
Gdinut thinks that Rockface Village can be activated at instant speed. But this seems to be just throwing their creatures away.
Yeah, that was not great, but there's still that
But,
lightning strike.
and the top deck to Dark Wastes means that there isn't really a punish, because they get to Lightning Strike JZJaws, get them down to 1, and the Screaming Nemesis from Exile's just going to finish the job.
Yeah, I
There's
mean,
no way to
the
stop that
Nemesis
damage.
is that good. Oh, wow.
And yeah, you either have to block the Nemesis and take 1 from the trigger, or leave it unblocked and die to its damage.
And Mono Red showing why it's so powerful, taking care of that. Just 2-0 there against the Oculus deck. And I mean, we did see Oculus, which is nice, but this game, at one point, I really thought that the Azorius deck was ahead, but somehow the Mono Red deck can persist. And I feel like that's what's make these aggressive decks so good is that it's not just like I get my perfect end and I win. Sometimes it still goes back, and cards like Nemesis can be like, okay, I'm going to win because if you block it, you're dead, and if you don't block it, you're dead as well.
Yeah, and it's the sort of thing where JZJaws was stable for a bit, but those exiled Screaming Nemesis just came back and were able to just kill him from the point where he was stable. It was just a lot of damage held up in exile.
And congratulations for Gdinut. I'm always not saying this properly, but congratulations for making it into the top 8 and qualifying for the VML Championship and as well for the regional championships. Very exciting stuff. And we have one more person to bring into the top 8 of the VML and the regional championship. So that's going to be match 4. Let's take a look at what we have. Nicole. Okay, so Nicole is playing Temur Otters, and I have to say, I've played against Nicole before. Nicole is an amazing player. She's really good at Magic, and I'm excited to see this deck that, honestly, I'm very surprised to see here. Temur Otters. Tell me about this deck.
So, Temur Otters is the deck that Sanctum of All played for Worlds. I was part of the team who was testing with it, and it was a very powerful deck, although it is the hardest Magic deck I've ever played by an order of magnitude. It is much harder than decks that are known to be hard, like Doomsday or Amulet Titan or Court Clan Ironworks. Every card has just 3 or 4 different modes, and you have to choose which card you play, which mode you play. And every time you lose a game, it feels like there was something you could have done to win. And I'm excited to see Nicole play this. She's a very proficient player. She is very good at playing mid-range type games and choosing between marginal options. So I expect this to be better for her than it is for most. But this is an extremely hard, extremely punishing deck. And
I,
I'm excited to see how it performs.
I'm also excited to see Nicole says here that Screaming Nemesis, the life gain prevention, is a really challenging aspect to battle through post board, and it makes combat very awkward. So let's see if Nicole's opponent is playing Screaming Nemesis here. And it looks like she is playing Mono Red Prowess. So kind of the same deck that we saw before. I don't think there are many changes from we just saw.
Yeah, this appears to be the exact same main deck configuration. And I'm not sure if the sideboard has any differences. It does have a couple, but this is the same main deck configuration. It is Quintanoli's List from Worlds, which is a very powerful, very tuned list. It's a very strong game one, and I think this is like, I think Mono Red is actually slightly favored against Otters. It's able to just get underneath and present a fast clock, and also kill the cheap creatures that need to die. And this is the matchup you really don't want to face when you're playing Otters.
And let's see our players getting ready here and see if this Otters deck can make it into the top 8 of the VML, or if it's going to be Mono Red once again to take the crown. So looks like Nicole here, starting with this town ain't big enough, torch the tower, analyze the pollen, and questing druid. On the other side, we have 2 lands, Iron Claw, Lightning Strike, the Manifold, and the Frenzy.
Yeah, this is the type of hand that you keep but feel slightly bad about from the Otter side. You have Torch the Tower as an answer to the first threat, but you don't have green mana, and you have Analyze the Pollen, which is a mana fixer, but it costs green mana. So there's going to be a bit of awkwardness. Picking up Storm Chaser's talent is huge, though. It creates a creature that can actually tussle and lets you compete on the board, and also gives you a target for this town ain't big enough.
Ooh, look at that. Nicole trying to make a massive amount of rats there.
So Song of Totentons is funny because the deck plays Enduring sorry, I don't remember what the green Enduring is. Enduring Vitality, which makes your creatures tap for mana. And it plays Valley Floodcaller, which says when you cast a non-creature spell, birds, frogs, otters, and rats you control get +1/+1 till end of turn, untap them. So if you have Floodcaller and Enduring Vitality, Song makes a bunch of creatures that tap for mana and then untap whenever you cast a spell. And there's a slightly complicated infinite combo you can do involving this town ain't big enough and Storm Chaser's talent once you have enough of those creatures. So Nicole's setting up to be able to do that. Oh, and that's a really perfect set of 2 cards to get off of the exile. You really needed a creature to play, and you really needed a green land, and it's very, very good that Nicole hit both.
Very good here for Nicole, managing to get that green source that she really needed. And I mean, setting up things. Sophie dealing some damage. Nicole already at 16 life, but nothing crazy yet. Not one of those crazy turns that we see sometimes with the monstrous rage.
Yeah, this is just a hand that's going to present pressure over time. This Torch the Tower is a really huge pickup. Sophie only has the 1 creature, and an answer to it is extremely potent right now. Nicole is right now realizing that she didn't leave up red mana, instead choosing to have Storm Chaser's talent, which is in her hand, held up. I think it's the correct play, but it's a very tough decision that you're going to feel bad afterwards about.
And 4 mana now on the other side.
And it looks like this is going to be a 3/2 double striker, which is not enough. Oh, choosing Trample.
I mean,
And the
Nicole here
double
just
block
double
from Nicole.
blocking.
I really like this. If your opponent's letting you double block to trade, like, why not accept it? And especially since they're not doing anything, like Nicole's very position. Nicole is very favored from here
Yeah, I
because
mean now
Sophie kind of just fizzled out.
yeah, I mean now there's the Torture Tower to take care of the mouse, so Nicole decided not even to block it, just take 3 damage. I have an answer for it anyway. And now she's going to be able to start taking the game on.
And this Furnace Sauna is just a very powerful answer where if the game goes long and nothing much happens, Nicole's going to be able to start drawing cards with it. And she passes holding up this town big enough. That makes sense, especially since when Sophie draws the new mouse, it can bounce the token copy, which will then cease to exist.
So let's see here what Sophie is able to do. A bit of an awkward position against Nicole. I've lost to Nicole before in the VML, I think multiple times. Um, Nicole plays really well, and I also like that she always brings fun decks. I feel like she's always kind of meta calling. So
She
this
is.
Otter deck is really nice.
I played Nicole once in a PTQ in Minneapolis, and at one point a judge came by and told us, "Hey, you're having too much fun. Please be a bit quieter."
Oh wow.
Her deck was a lot better at mine, but unfortunately for her, she got color screwed.
I never got that much fun on a PTQ. I need to start going to the PTQs that you're going.
I'm just the ones where you get paired up against friends.
Yeah, that's definitely more fun. So there's this town ain't big enough that
Yeah, and it's
can.
gonna buy back either the Sauna or the Storm Chaser's talent, unsure which. Or even the Thunder Trap. There's infinite good options.
Yeah,
You know what
that's
you see what I mean when I say this deck is hard?
yep. Another land for Nicole here, but this one does enter tapped.
Yeah, and she just has full command of this game. I think she's supposed to just develop to the board this turn, probably play out Questing Druid and then Storm Chaser's talent and then torch the tower.
These pain
Yeah.
lands though, already dealing also a lot of damage to Nicole.
Yeah, the deck has a dubious mana base. That is one of its biggest issues. But it is powerful.
Foundations didn't really bring any good lands, right? I'm trying to think about it, but
There
I
is the
don't think
new
so.
land that you can pay 4 mana and it permanently becomes a 3/3 with all creature types. I think that's going to be a really strong card in the Golgari Unholy Annex deck as
Mm-hmm.
a land that can become a demon. But there's not much else. There's temples, which you don't really want.
Look at the amount of damage. These little otters are not that little anymore. Attacking for 4 there, plus 1, 5, down to 12. And
Like,
this is the spot where Mono Red is getting almost as much life as the opponent, and that's not where Sophie wants to be.
yeah, and if Sophie attacks with this Hardfire Hero, Song of Tontons is lethal. It might still be lethal. I haven't done the math. 4, 6, 8, 9. It's not quite lethal, but Nicole's able to push a lot of damage here if she wants to.
Leveling
Oh,
up,
and she's
getting another
getting
torch
back
to
a
the
torch to the
tower.
tower. Yep. Just exiles the Hardfire Hero, says, "You're going to take 9 damage here. You have 1 turn to kill me, and then you're super dead."
And that's, by the way, it exiles, so not even damage coming through from the dying effect. And this is game. I mean, I think Nicole just checked if the land is sorcery speed and was like, okay, this is my game. Now sideboard, Nicole does have answers against mono red? I mean,
So this is the sideboard strategy that I believe we used at Worlds. You board out, you bring in dissection tools because it is a very powerful way to gain life that has pseudo haste because you can sacrifice the manifest dread to move it on to another creature. And it just gains a lot of life and they can't really go bigger than it. The problem, of course, is that Screaming Nemesis is frightening. From the mono red side, I am surprised to see Urbas Forge being brought in. It does not line up particularly well against this town ain't big enough. And Sophie
All right.
probably knows something I don't, because the tokens do kill, and the deck is kind of a removal pile.
So it looks like Sophie here starting with that Art Fire hero. And on the other side, Nicole does have quite a bit of answers, but maybe a bit slow against this amazing start from Sophie.
Yeah, like this hand doesn't have actually answers in it, and this is seven. This is a turn 3 kill if Sophie decides to go for it. And do they commit? This is the first Monstrous Rage coming onto the Heartfire hero, I believe.
It's a difficult decision to make. Knowing about the Torch to Towers and...
Well, it has 3 toughness, and there's only a single red up.
Yeah,
And once
that's
this
true.
resolves, the second Monstrous Rage is lethal. Does Sophie go for it? There's nothing Nicole could have. She has no cards under 75 that answer this. Well, no, she has a Flood Maw. I lied. She has a single into the Flood Maw, and Sophie chooses to respect it.
Questing Druid here, getting a couple of cards. There's a Torch to Tower, but that's not going to do it. And I mean, fast game here.
Nicole's,
Sometimes mono red is like this on the play.
yeah, sometimes you just die.
Yep.
And they're resubmitting, no changes.
And you were saying that you're in a testing house, right? How much do you discuss about the sideboard calls? How much is it helpful for you to be in this kind of testing team?
So I do a lot of testing with Sanctum of All, and I was somewhat involved with the World's testing team this go around. It's really helpful to have people who are like some of the strongest players in the world who are just testing with you, playing your matchup, and you know that there's someone good on the other side offering their opinions. And
Yeah, I love that.
Nicole and Sophie are both members of Sanctum of All as well. Both of them are strong players who've done a lot of innovation, and I'm excited to see how this happens.
Attacking here. There's the Shock, there's Nemesis in hand. Not quite as an aggressive hand as we saw the previous
Yeah,
game.
Enduring Vitality, letting the Thunder Trap Trainer tap for mana is huge here. Having Torch held up is just very powerful and very nice to have against Sophie. And we'll see, does the Swiss Spear get torched here?
That's going to be an interesting decision, and it looks like Nicole might go for it.
I mean, if Nicole goes for it, I think that's pretty much a game there. Like, the Screaming Nemesis is kind of underwhelming compared to onboard dissection tools. And it puts Sophie in a bind where they can't really attack.
And very rewarded for the decision there. And I mean, things are going to be rough now for Sophie. There's that Nemesis, but
Yeah,
Nicole's just going to take the damage.
Emberheart Challenger off the top is a huge pickup. Ooh, this Townie
This
Big Enough
town
is
ain't big
also
enough.
huge.
Oh, wow.
Having a way to bounce the Nemesis lets you actually get through with the Dissection Tools Manifest, and it lets you start gaining life. And I think Nicole's very comfortably in the driver's seat this game. So if he can start drawing cards with the engine of, oh, she chooses not to play it. Interesting. Very respectful.
Just going for the flood color here and leaving this town ain't big enough up.
Yeah, just choosing to say, okay, you're going to play out some other card. I'm just going to bounce that in your Nemesis, and it's going to be that simple. Forge makes the creature. Let's see, what does Nicole do?
I mean, Nicole saw that there was no 1 mana trick before.
Yeah.
And now we have that flood
playing
color.
Flood color. Interesting.
I don't even know if she uses this town in big enough. I don't think it's needed.
definitely not needed. But I mean, here you get to just start doing a lot of game actions because all of your spells have a rebate thanks to vitality and untapping the flood color.
Oh, wow. Look at that. Untap, it's now a 3-3. It can also provide more mana once again. There's still two 1 mana spells on Nicole's hand. So she can do
Yeah,
a
she's
lot
kind of
here.
storming off a bit.
Yeah,
And Sophie concedes.
Sophie's like,
Nicole
no,
wins.
I don't want to watch this no more. This is going to be enough. And good game there for Nicole advancing in top 8, qualifying for the regional championship.
Yeah.
Good game as well for Sophie. But I have to say, I'm happy to see Nicole advancing in the top 8 and making it into regional championship and to the VML championships. I think she's been working really hard in the VML. I see how she's always preparing against what the opponent is playing, really always tuning the deck. So, really well deserved there for Nicole. Congratulations. I'm excited to see the top 8 next week as well. And was this our fourth match? I feel like this weekend went by pretty fast. I'm not sure if it's just because we're having fun or we had so many aggro decks as well.
I mean, every player we saw who was on the play chose to bring an aggressive deck because they knew that going first gives you that advantage. So these players knew, hey, I'm on the play. Let me just kill my opponent. But also, Standard's a bit aggressive right now. The red deck is one of the most powerful decks available, and Convoke is a deck that is really resilient and got new tools with the new room. And I'm really excited to see how Standard changes with Foundations, with the addition of Llanowar Elves, Burst Lightning, Spectral Sailor, and just plenty of new bangers.
And if you were playing next week the top 8, what would you bring as your deck, Nor? I'm curious to know.
I really can't say. Right now, I'm really looking at Golgari Elves. Sorry, Golgari midrange with Llanowar Elves and Unholy Annex. I think most standard decks cannot beat Unholy Annex being played on turn 2. But I'd also looking to just play mono red. It's a really strong, powerful deck. I'd also look and just say, okay, maybe I just play Otters. It's a really good deck that has infinite complexity. So who's to say? But there's a lot of room to explore right now. What
I'm
about
really
you? What would you
excited to
play?
see. I don't know. I think I would play something with Zombify. I was testing some Dimir with Zombify. I think it works really well. The new Cora should not be slept on. That card can be really powerful. I really like it. So something with Cora, Zombify, trying to get that Valgavot on turn 4 and trying to win from there. Although I've lost against Nemesis with them shocking their own Nemesis just so that I didn't have the lifelink from Valgavot. But other than that, my win rate with that deck is quite high. So I feel like that has some potential. So I'm going to leave the tip there if anyone is watching to try the Zombify Dimir deck. I think it's pretty fun. But that's going to be it for for this week here of the VML season 13. I would like to thank Wizards of the Coast for sponsoring the VML. Without them, this wouldn't be possible. Also, thanks for Phoebe here for being our amazing producer. And Nor, thank you so much for coming in. You gave so much great insight here on the games, and I can really see that you're so involved into like professional testing, and you really have deep knowledge about the format, and that's incredible to see.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure casting, and it's nice to be on this side of the VML booth instead of watching in chat like I usually do. And I want to say thank you all of the viewers for watching. You've
Thank you
been
everyone for watching, and Nora, I hope to see you here more in the coverage booth. I mean, you did amazing, so I really enjoyed having you here. And good luck to everyone competing next week and playing in the VML. Or for those of you that don't, just tune in next week. It's going to be again 3 p.m. Pacific time on Sunday. It's going to be the VML finals, so make sure that you show up and watch some games live. That's going to be it for us, and we will see you in the next week. Bye bye.
bye.